Okay, so we're going to make the baseball cap. It's the same for all the sizes. It's made the same exact way. So you're going to need 4 triangles for the cap, for the outside, and 2 pieces like this for the back of the cap. You're going to need a brim, and you're going to need something to put in the brim. I'm using a piece of foam. You can use cardboard or flexible plastic or heavy interfacing if you don't have any of that. And then you're going to need the same thing for the lining, so you're going to need a brim and 4 triangle pieces for the cap and the 2 pieces for the back of the cap. Okay, so once you have all your pieces cut, we're going to get started. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is grab our back pieces and place them right sides together. And we are going to stitch here to here, 1/4 inch. Okay, so we've got that stitched. Here, you can either open these up and press it flat, like that, or you can trim it down to about 1/8 inch. Alright, and then when you open it up, it's going to be nice and flat. Now, if you're going to do the decorative stitching with the stitching down the seams, I would suggest you do it at this point. You can wait till the whole cap's done and then do it at that point. So now we're going to add one of these pieces to the back piece. And we're going to stitch from this all the way down here. Okay, and I trimmed that edge. And now I'm going to stitch like that down here. Okay. Now we're going to do the same thing on this side. We're going to stitch 1/4 inch down the side, trim it, and then do the top stitching on the top side. Okay, now we're going to add another piece to this side. Alright, and we're going to stitch and trim and do the top stitching. Okay, and we're going to add this last piece to the outer fabric. Alright, so we'll start here. We'll stitch, trim, and do the top stitching. Okay, and now we're just going to fold this in half. And sew this part. Okay, then we're going to trim and do the outside stitching, the top stitching on that part. Okay, and the outer fabric of our cap is done. Now you can add a button to the top here if you want. I would use your button and make a circle a little bit bigger, and then gather all around it and sew it to the top. So that's what I'm going to do next. You don't have to. Okay, so I'm using a 12mm button for the top of the hat. So I'm going to just put this on my fabric, and I'm going to draw a circle around it. Like that. I'm going to cut the circle out. Just going to gather it. inside, and we're going to pull this. Alright, now we're just going to sew that to the top of the hat. You could also glue it if you want, but I'm sewing mine. Okay, so once you have the button sewn on, you can knot it underneath. And I would knot it a few times to make sure it's on there well. Not going to come off. Okay, so now we are going to add the brim, and we're going to find the middle, which will be the middle front, which will be this seam right here. Okay, and so we are going to fold it like that. Right sides together. It's going to go against the cap. Okay, and now we're just going to stitch this on. Okay, so now we are going to do almost the same thing with the lining. The lining obviously doesn't have a button and doesn't have top stitching. So we're going to put our pieces together just like we did for the first, and we're going to stitch and trim just like we did with the other ones. So I am going to, right sides together, I am going to go sew these together. Okay, so that is our lining, and we're going to do the same thing with the brim. Fold it in half, find the front of the lining, fold this in half, right sides together, and we're going to pin it in place. stitch, 1/4 of an inch, and sew that onto the lining. Okay, so now we have to sew the lining to the outer fabric. So right sides together. We're going to turn this inside out. And we're going to place it over. Okay, I'm just going to pin. When you're pinning this on, you want to make sure that you're keeping all the seams in the brim so that everything lines up. Okay, and for this we are just going to place it here. You want to kind of tuck it underneath that seam. Alright, because we don't want to catch this in, we don't want to catch it when we sew around here, because it'll make it very difficult to turn and it'll be bulky, and we don't want that. We just want this to give the brim some structure. Alright, so I'm going to pin this first and then we'll pin that on. So now we're going to stitch. We're going to leave a little bit of an opening here so we can slide in a piece of elastic to keep that closed when we're done. So we're going to sew from this pin all the way around to that pin, and then we're going to sew from here to here around the brim here, and we're going to leave this open here so we can turn the cap the right way out. All right. Okay, so now make sure you have all the pins out. And now find where you left it open and we're going to pull the cap out. Okay, now you want to close up this side. There should be an opening right there, which there is. Okay, so for the small dolls, you're going to use a 2-inch piece of elastic, and for the larger dolls, I think this is 3 inches. Okay, and now you're going to slide it into that hole that we left open. side. Alright. That looks big, but it needs to be big to get their hair through it because there's so much hair. Okay, so now we're just going to top stitch around the whole hat, and then I'm going to top stitch 2 or 3 rows of stitching onto the brim. And your hat is done.